Good evening and welcome to Spooky South Coast. Tim Weisberg here, along with the silent assassin Matt Costa and science advisor Matt Moniz. Couple of weeks off here, but we're back. I kind of remember how to do things here. I don't think I screwed up too badly there in the beginning, but let me make sure that I put stuff back on the air for the Red Sox game, or else that'll get me in trouble. So it's great to be back here after a couple weeks off. This is Spooky South Coast, where we talk about the paranormal pretty much each and every Saturday night, and we'll be with you for a lot of Saturday nights coming forward because we don't have a lot of other things planned in the weeks ahead. But oh, that's a little creaky. But we will say that it's been a interesting couple of weeks since we last spoke to you. Of course, I went on the paranormal cruise with Stephanie and Porter. That was a good time. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. And also, last week, we took the night off because we had the opportunity to go and see Taylor Cormier, WBSM news director, and myself, along with our friend Scott Renish. We had the chance to go over to the Gilbert Gottfried show at Whites of Westport, and we actually got the chance to sit down before the show and interview Gilbert Gottfried. You know how they say don't meet your heroes? Well, that doesn't count when it comes to Gilbert Gottfried because he's one of my favorite comedians, if not my absolute favorite, and he was so nice. He was so humble. He was so unassuming. You wouldn't even know that he was the star of the show from the way that he was interacting with people and hanging out and all of that. So we recorded a good 10, 12-minute interview with him, mostly about his podcast, Gilbert Gottfried's amazing Colossal podcast, because Taylor and I are huge fans of the podcast, and all of you out there should be as well. If you've never listened to it, you need to tune in and check it out. You can get it on Stitcher or wherever wherever podcasts are found. But we had the chance to really sit down and pick his brain a little bit about that podcast. And we talked a bit about some things that pertain to Spooky South Coast. You know, I'd wanted to get him to open up about the Universal Monsters because he's a big Universal Monsters fan. And I figured that would fit into the show perfectly. But it took a little bit of a turn. We had him do some impressions that he does that are really good. Some of you may know the impressions, some of you may not. And we actually ended it with a song. So all that is coming up a little bit later on in the show. But we also will talk about, we'll have the Week in Weird. And I always say each week that Matt Blystein has kind of outdone himself with the Week in Weird, but this week I think he definitely has. So stay tuned for that as well. And then, you know, if it's one thing we talk about on the show, yeah, it's the paranormal. That's kind of part of the show. But come on, what's it really all about? It's all about the snacks, right? So there's a box behind me that you can see on Spooky TV right now. A big box behind me that is from Japan. And that box is full of some treats from our friend Spook Cat out in Japan, who is actually listening right now live. So thank you to Spook Cat for that. We will open it up on the air because there's nothing better on a paranormal radio show than listening to the host unbox gifts that they receive from listeners, right?
Yep.
That's what all the good paranormal radio shows do. She gets the joke, so it's okay. So we will do that a little bit later on as well. But before we get into all of that, we have somebody popping on for a little bit to join us to talk about an exciting new project that I think all of you will have an interest in, and also maybe have an interest in helping to support. So let's bring on Frank Durant right now. Frank, are you with us? I think we got him on a little bit of a delay. Hi, Frank. Are you there? I know he's there. I can hear him. Frank, you with us?
Hi, Frank. Are you there?
Tim, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me okay?
Hello?
Hi. Hold on. How about now? Can you hear me now?
Are you there, Tim?
I'm here now. Can you hear me?
Hello?
Hello? Whoa. I'm going to keep pressing buttons till it works.
Hold on. How about...
It's an audition. That should work.
I can't hear you. I think you can hear me.
I can hear you. What? Matt's going to try and fix it. We'll fix it in post. I think I have everything set up correctly. Oh, you know what? I have to turn the phone button on. Can you hear me now, Frank?
I hear someone now. Hi, Tim.
Okay, hi. Sorry about that. Jeez.
No,
out of all the
Saturday
problems,
night it happens.
Out of all the problems that I was having, like, you know, pressing all the different buttons that put stuff out to video and it was just simply turning on the phone.
Gotcha.
That was the problem. So That's what happens when I have 2 weeks off. You can't trust me to come back and be able to do the job correctly.
No worries. It's funny, though. During production, we had a lot of issues at Maplecroft when we filmed this. I wonder, is it an evil spirit or just someone messing with us? So it hasn't ended.
Oh, it's still going on even after you've been there and already kind of made peace with whatever's there? You're still having after effects?
Well, obviously the phone wouldn't work, so I'm assuming we're not through we're not at the end yet.
Well, I mean, that could just as well be my own curse too. So I don't know. I've got my own things that follow me around from some of this stuff. But let's talk about this project that you're working on. It's called Tea with Lizzie Borden. And for anybody that listens to this show, we know the Lizzie Borden story inside and out, but you have a different and new and fresh take on the Lizzie Borden story.
Well, yeah, if you're a fan of Lizzie Borden, you know there are tons of movies and documentaries out there, a lot of them basing on the paranormal. And they've always talked about the femme fatale, the murder of the parents, but no one's ever done a depiction of Lizzie Borden the last weeks of her life. So the idea is a historical fiction of Tea with Lizzie Borden, where a local news reporter, a young man in his 20s from the Fall River Herald, receives a letter from somebody named Mr. Maplecroft asking for his time to go to Maplecroft and to come for a newsworthy story. So when the young reporter shows up, he sees an old elderly woman dying of pneumonia on her back porch, and through a little bit of conversation, he realizes there is no Mr. Maplecroft or Mrs. Maplecroft, but he's actually having tea with the notorious Lizzie Borden.
And that gives you the opportunity, to have it be the final days of her life. That would seem like the perfect time she would want to get things off of her chest.
Well, that's as you assume. He's assuming, oh my God, this is a deathbed confession, and I get to be the young reporter who finally has Lizzie Borden's last word. And in return, Lizzie Borden's actually asking him to help her write her obituary. So as a news reporter would, or a journalist, he starts to do that for her, but as it goes on, it becomes a investigation and becomes him asking a lot of questions till Lizzie is faced with the question, did you or did you not commit the murder?
And when putting this together, I mean, obviously, you have to put yourself in her shoes and kind of speculate a little bit, but I'm assuming that you probably did, a good amount of research to see, like, how she felt about what happened in the years after the trial and to kind of get into her mindset that she may have had and how she might have approached such a conversation.
Well, absolutely. There's many books written on people who knew of Lizzie Borden or worked for her, or even people who had associated with her in the last years of her life. And if you talk to the Woods family, who own the bed and breakfast and now the new Maplecroft, which they're turning into a bed and breakfast as well, there's a ton of information of primary sources that they've collected over the years, where they will almost be the real primary source of how Lizzie Borden had dealt with the press throughout her whole life, and how at the anniversary of the trials, every year there was a news reporter knocking on her front door asking, hey, would Miss Borden care to be interviewed? And she said no every year for the last 35 plus years of her life.
So there is that need to make peace with what happens, but also I think Lizzie Borden was somebody who was very much she was concerned about what her legacy was going to be. I mean, she left money to animals, to the animal shelter, that they still get money from every year from her estate. So
exactly.
It's, she was very concerned about what people were going to think about her long after she was gone.
Well, one of the things she talked about, she basically stayed in Fall River her whole life. She could have changed her name, disappeared, and back then there was no internet, there was no mass media. So who's to say someone would say, I recognize that woman from the newspapers? There are only, caricatures of her. So she could have disappeared, changed her name, and changed her life, and not lived in the city that she lived in. She had a lot of pride. So like you said, she did care to a degree, but at the same time, you want to assume she had made peace, have always been guilty her whole life, even though she was proven innocent.
And it's funny because, we talked to you, we were trying to hook up with you back when you were actually filming at Maplecroft, but we ran into some scheduling issues because I'm stupid and can't keep a calendar correctly. But
I think that's part of the curse. Like everything from a neighbor cutting his grass in the early morning at 7 o'clock in the morning when we're trying to shoot.
Oh, man.
To there's a hospital right next door, so there was an ambulance every 30 minutes. There was an airplane flying over every half an hour. So we were shocked to have actually gotten the entire film shot that day. But there was everything from technical issues to people, just personality to just everything from the coffee being not warm enough. There's always something going, okay, why am I being held back? Something's holding us from making the story happen. But eventually, after a long 12-hour day, we got the footage, and we're currently in post-production.
But I do think that it's kind of appropriate that we are talking to you this week as well, though, because, if you look at what's coming up, we're coming up on the anniversary of her death, right?
Correct. She passed away, I want to say, actually June 1st, right around the corner.
It's, this is always what tends to happen, too, with us here on this show as we get around these milestones for the Lizzie Borden story. And and whether it's intentional, most of the time it's not, we help kind of keep feeding into her legacy. And that's what you're trying to do with this, is you're trying to, present another side of the story, or at least one possible side of the story. You're not trying to solve the murders with this.
Mm-hmm.
Was that kind of was that something that you were consciously aware of, that, there's no way to really be able to solve it, so you really just kind of have to present it from that perspective of, here's just one possibility?
Well, yeah, I think one of the reasons why the Woods family liked the screenplay, because it really didn't have to do anything with the paranormal, where there's tons of people always trying to show up and try to find the spirit or the ghost of Lizzie Borden.
Mm-hmm.
For this being a different genre, I think they were like, oh my God, this would be a first in a very long time, because there's tons of fans worldwide that will fly in and actually come to, of all places, Fall River, because the Lizzie Borden name and the story still holds true to a lot of people because of the ghastly murder it was, a daughter killing her stepmother and father, and also she was the O.J. Simpson trial of the era, where she got off when really public perception was she was guilty of sin. So to have kind of a depiction of not the, like I mentioned before, the femme fatale, or even about the trial, this is literally an old woman who knows that she'll be dead by the end of the week, and really that's a different perspective of a young girl trying to get off of murder. She's coming to death very soon. So doing research not just on the story of Lizzie Borden, but also the language people spoke in the 1920s, it was not very different from how we speak today, but there were different words and phrases and how people pronounced, because people had always asked, did Lizzie Borden have an accent? For me, as you can tell, I'm from the Rhode Island area, but, was Lizzie Borden a true Victorian woman who still spoke proper English? So there was a lot of research to say, how do I cast this? How do I portray her as an old woman in her 60s? But also, how is she going to hold herself as the Lizzie Borden of who you read about, as opposed to maybe she was a nice old woman, like you mentioned, leaving money for her for animal care.
And so now with you've done some of the filming at Maplecroft. What's left in the pipeline before we can see this come out? What's still left to be done in the process, and can people still help out with it?
Well, that's the thing. We have an Indiegogo page. If you were to Google Tea with Lizzie Borden, you'll easily find it on a lot of different Lizzie Borden Facebook pages. Everybody's promoting the help just to raise some final funding for post-production. I currently have a staff of editors working on it to sync sound to make sure everything is color-corrected. So any donations would go to the post-production team, just to give them some extra funds to help them hopefully have this edited by the end of June.
Excellent. And then what are the plans for the premiere? Is it going to be an internet premiere? Are you going to be renting out a theater in Fall River? Or?
Yeah, actually, the days of renting out theaters, when I started doing this 20 years ago, that was always the game plan, of renting out the Columbus Cinema in Providence or finding a local cinema in Massachusetts. Now it's really throwing it on YouTube or Vimeo and just letting the public have it in public domain. The goal of this really was just to tell the story. When I wrote it, I thought this was a great script, and then I convinced actors and people to help produce it. So really the funding goes to just getting this out there, so hopefully it just adds my 2 cents, but also gives a different depiction of the whole Lizzie Borden chronicles.
Well, thank you for joining us and for letting us know about this project, and let us know when it's out there and people can check it out for themselves, and we'll be sure to spread the word, and we'll make sure that we let everybody know that it's out there, and we'll see what people take away from this. I think, more than anything, is they're going to see a human Lizzie Borden after the trial. They're gonna be able to put a face to it. They're gonna be able to, even if it's just an actress playing her, but they're gonna be able to kind of humanize who Lizzie Borden was following the trial, which is something I think, unfortunately, has never really been done. Everybody wants to tell the story of the murders, but nobody ever wants to humanize what it was like for her to live in Fall River in the years following the murders.
Exactly. Thank you again, Tim.
All right. Take care and keep in touch.
Have a good night.
That is Frank Durant of the film Tea with Lizzie Borden. And again, we will let you know when it comes out there because I'm interested. I definitely want to see how it is that they portray her because, listen, Moniz, you've been doing this for a long time. You know, we've been doing this program for 13 years, and we started researching Lizzie Borden pretty much from the very beginning.
Yep.
And people always ask us all the time, like, do we think she did it? And my opinion has always been it doesn't matter. For what I do, it doesn't matter if she did it or not. Because I'm not interested in the murders themselves. I'm interested in all the things that have happened from a paranormal sense after the murders. But it's a question that, will never get answered. Even though there's rumors that there's, Lizzie Borden's personal inquest is in the lawyer's office in Springfield under lock and key and can never be revealed and all that stuff. But it's unsolvable for any of us to try to solve it.
Not with the information that we have.
Right.
Yeah.
So if that's going to be the case, all you're doing is speculating. And so it really doesn't help for me to try to come up with a hypothesis. Do I think it's possible that she did it? Sure. Did she have the motivation? Yep. Did she have the means? Absolutely. But just like O.J. Simpson, unfortunately they couldn't prove it. And that's what it is. Like, she was never convicted of the murders, at least in the court of law. That doesn't
Openly
mean
convicted.
Doesn't mean she didn't do it. Just like I'm like 95% sure O.J. Simpson killed those people.
Yeah.
But they couldn't prove it.
Right.
And so the same thing happened with Lizzie Borden. So I'm kind of past the point though where it matters for the story. It matters, of course, if you want Andrew and Abby Borden to have justice for their murders. But in terms of what it is that we do, I don't dwell on it.
Yeah, unanswered questions. Yeah, people want closure. I get that. But what you're talking about, the paranormal, okay, whether she did or didn't do it, you're right. What's it really going to change, if you know?
And even if it does, I mean, it'll only change the questions that you ask.
Yeah.
And what's funny is that everybody's asked those questions anyway. There's been people who have come in from the perspective of, I know Lizzie did it. There's been people who have come in from the perspective of, there's no way Lizzie could have done it. And all of those questions from either perspective have all been asked.
And did she do it with somebody else? Or did somebody else do it for her? And, a number of different iterations.
And what's funny is the interesting question that's come up now, we touched on it a little bit here on the show, is that we talked about it with Chip Coffey and Amy Bruni a few weeks ago. And that is that now that Maplecroft is going to be open for people to check out and investigate and stay in and all that kind of stuff once they get everything finalized with it, how can Lizzie Borden be haunting two places at once? Does her spirit move from 92 2nd Street over to Maplecroft and that's where she stays? Has it always been at 92 2nd, always been at Maplecroft? And what we're talking to in 2nd Street is not Lizzie Borden.
Could it be neither?
Or it could be both.
Yeah.
That's what's fascinating about it. But I think that the important part of this, as we go forward with the story, is we have proof of a place where a tragedy happened.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's no doubt that there was a double murder in that house.
Correct.
Amongst other things that have happened in that house and on that property over the years. And then we have another house where that didn't happen. So we have the traumatic place and we have the place where there was no trauma. We have the place where Lizzie Borden had some of her worst memories and the place where she probably had some of her best memories.
Mm-hmm. And
so it's going to be fascinating since the Lizzie Borden house has been open now for 23 years, thereabouts, for bed and breakfast, as a bed and breakfast, and as a place that people have been exploring, paranormally speaking, over the course of the next 23 years, that both places will be open. It'll be really interesting to see what kind of stuff comes out, because now we've got, it's almost like, I don't want to say it's almost like, having it be under the scientific method where you can, but you almost have your, you almost have your control environment with Maplecroft, where that there was no axe murders that happened there. So I think it'll be fascinating to see kind of, over time as it builds what ends up happening here. Because you know my theory about what goes on there. We've talked about it many times, personally and on their show. There's something much more malevolent than any human beings, any murders. You know, maybe the term is elemental. I don't think it's demonic, but it's something evil, something dark. Whatever word you want to attach to it, that's what's there, and it feeds off the negativity of what goes on there. So what happens if that thing doesn't exist in Maplecroft? So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I look forward to it.
We've got access, and
but I'm talking about the long term. We can only do so much. I'm talking about when we have all of this, because let's face it, Lizzie Borden, the bed and breakfast is one of the most investigated places in the world.
Yeah.
So all these years that people were trying to start these databases for places, like that would have been one of the prime spots to have be a data collector. And so I think we'll see the same with Maplecroft, and it's just...
You want to see how they collate.
And not only that, but I want to see if the same people have the same experiences from one place to the other, you know, because then is it something that's around the person? And, you know, there's just so many layers to it that it's very unique that we have two ends of the story now, when so many of these haunted locations, we just have one part of it.
Yeah.
You know, like even if we got access to the Amityville house today, you still only have the Amityville house. So when the Lutzes claim that whatever was there followed them to California, well, you don't have access to go to that house in California. Or when Chris Lutz is saying that it's still harassing him today, I mean, we could probably ask him if we could go to his house, but still, like, it's what I'm saying is it's you still only just have one piece of the puzzle. Here you've got another piece, and maybe that other piece helps you put together the picture a little bit better.
Well, if, like what you're saying, she could be in both places at the same time. You know, she shared half of her life in one location, the other half in the other.
Right. And you could also say, though, that, you know, if you are dead, you get to choose where it is that you go, if you go at all. You know, some people would say you're supposed to move on and move into the light. Some people will say you can come back if you want. Some people say you'll come back if you have unfinished business. Whatever the different
Well, you got
attributions are they put on it.
You got things like crisis haunting. Somebody dies in a location far away and visits a loved one that's like, you know, either 10 miles or 100 miles or 1,000 miles away. You know, oh, grandma came and sat on my bed. You know, so why wouldn't she be able to go, you know?
But my point is she wouldn't want to go to 2nd Street if she had that free will. So what happens if the Lizzie Borden, and this is, you know, all speculation, what happens if the Lizzie Borden that we encounter at Maplecroft tells us that the Lizzie Borden that we talked to at 2nd Street isn't her?
Well, you and I have seen something in there.
Oh, we've seen it. Yeah, we've seen it with our own eyes.
Right.
Yeah.
What it is, I can verify that I saw it with you, and we had several other witnesses.
Thanks to those kids, too, for never giving us the video footage.
Yeah, because that was absolutely wild watching that. And it was even more fun to watch them Scooby-Doo up the stairs.
Yeah, for those who aren't familiar with the story, I'll just tell it real quick because I probably told it 1,000 times here on the show. But it was on the anniversary of the murders, and Moniz and I just stopped by to say hi because we were in the neighborhood. Yep. I think we were going to go into the Quikasham Club that night. So we just stopped by to say hi, and while we were there was 2 teenage kids that were doing their own little like video investigation of the house, and so we went down to the basement with them because there was still reenactment stuff going on upstairs, and so we went down into the basement, and while we were in the basement, we saw a shadow figure, and the shadow figure stood and stared at us, and then as we made a move toward it, it disappeared. Well, it not disappeared, like it ran, like it took off. And we watched it move from, there's different rooms within the basement. We chased it from room to room for almost an hour. And every time we would get a little close to it, it would take off. So, and those kids were running video footage the entire time. But you know what? You know why I know that we haven't seen that footage? Do you remember what the fatal flaw was to them trying to record that video? because we ragged on them about it. They didn't have IR.
Yeah.
They just took a regular video camera down into the dark. I'm like, this will work, right? This is just going to turn green like on Ghost Hunters.
No.
It doesn't work that way. But maybe those kids are listening, and maybe they've taken that video and enhanced it over the years and can send it. No, they taped over it.
I'm sure. But it was definitely some sort of shadow that just autonomously moved on its own. It blocked light. It blocked other objects. It interacted with us. Yep.
And I don't know why we felt that it was whatever the negative thing is in there that's down there, but we felt that. And it did not. I remember feeling sick from it.
It was not a welcoming feeling.
I do not. I usually don't get sick from spirits, but I felt ill after that. So definitely an interesting night that night. And speaking of interesting nights, we've had some interesting nights since the last time that we were together. Oh, by the way, I want to say hi to everybody out there if you're listening at the Nick Groff and Elizabeth Saint event in Winchendon. Nick had invited me to come on up and join them, but I declined because we hadn't done the show in a couple of weeks, and I wanted to have the chance to come and talk to everybody and to catch everybody up on what we were doing. But I was hoping Stephanie would come in. She's still feeling a little bit under the weather, so I was hoping she would come in because we had some really, really interesting stuff happen to us while we were in Bermuda that is part of a bigger picture. We had the same spirit kind of following us around and interacting with us in different locations across Bermuda. So when we got it through Echovox, we got it through the Estes method, we got it through a number of different ways. And so I think we will probably put that together for at least a segment of a show, probably not an entire show, but at some point we'll talk about it in depth, and we'll see if we can bring Porter on too, because he was there for it as well as a number of our friends that were there with us on the trip. But I will say this, the food was especially good on this cruise. I mean, this food's always good on a cruise, but on this one it was especially good. So the final night I had prime rib.
Okay.
That was for my appetizer. I had seared scallops, or as everybody else said them, scallops. Those were surprisingly not that good.
Oh.
So for those of you who live in New England, trust me, there's a difference between New England scallops and scallops from other places. These other scallops just didn't taste like anything. So, but I had those, and I had bouillabaisse, which bouillabaisse is not an easy thing to make. It's not an easy thing to get. The saffron alone will cost you an arm and a leg, and I'm just mad about saffron.
And saffron's just mad about you.
Yep. So that's I just deal with that, and then the
nice Donovan reference.
I love Donovan, and then the prime rib. Yeah. So that was a good final meal. And what did I have for dessert that night? I don't remember what I had for dessert that night. Oh, it was that weird. It was some chocolate like custard, coffee custard, really good. But yeah. So anyway, food aside,
yeah,
it was a great time. We made a lot of new friends, as well as spent time with some old friends. So if you missed out, hopefully we'll do another one. I'd like to do another one. It was really fun. It's very interesting to bring people from all over the country and have them come together in this one place and bring their own stories from their own experiences from their own places. So as you're sitting around the bar having a couple of drinks, and, after dinner or whatever, and you get to talk and you get to hear all about their experiences and all of the things that they've found and discovered and checked out. And some of the folks had never even been on a paranormal investigation. So we also found out that we might have been the first people to ever investigate a certain historic location in Bermuda. And I think we weirded the people out that ran the glass bottom boat tour, but we actually investigated inside the inside the Bermuda Triangle over the spot of a shipwreck, which was an intentional shipwreck. They sunk the ship to form a reef, but we turned it on there, and trust me, it was not lost on everybody that we were in the Bermuda Triangle, like trying paranormal experiments. There was a slight concern about whether or not we would be returning. So I tried to alleviate the crew's concerns by saying it's kind of like Cocoon. Like they'll just take us and you guys can go back and tell everybody the story. But, like we might actually disappear. But it was a good time. And it's if you've never been to Bermuda, I recommend it. The best part about this cruise was we got the most fascinating tour guide, a bus driver actually, to drive us from the dockyard across Bermuda to St. George's. And he gave us so much Bermudan history. And he was a guy that was into the paranormal. So he knew like just some of the good paranormal stories to tell us too. And we came away with so much information. So if we do go back, we've got all kinds of plans about what else we want to do.
Well, the island's not all that big.
No, it's not. 22 miles.
Yeah.
And only like I think it's
like 6 miles wide.
I think it's 2 miles at its widest point. So it's really, really very small, and it's very expensive too because everything has to be imported into the island. They have like no real natural resources, and when they told me, as we were just talking about like some of the things that they have and they don't have, like one of the things they don't have is they don't have hornets and wasps because nobody's ever brought them there, so they don't have any. I was like, well, this is paradise to me then. I want to live here because I hate hornets and wasps. But we did, the last day that we were there, they had a monsoon, like just a regular storm for them. But a storm for them, a thunderstorm for them would be like a hurricane for us. We're talking 55 mile an hour winds. There's no protection coming right in off the ocean. And it was incredible. Glad that we got to experience that.
Hey, maybe we can form a reciprocal partnership with people in Bermuda.
One triangle to another?
Yeah.
As long as they bring some of the Bermudan fish stew.
Okay.
The official dish of Bermuda, I guess, or one of the official dishes. Have you ever heard of this? It's like a
heard of it, never had it.
It's like a dark, like like a little bit of a darker based fish stew.
Okay.
And then when they bring it to you, they bring you this cherry pepper sauce to pour into it, and rum.
Oh.
And so the rum that they bring is just a freaking bottle of rum right there in the little caddy, and you can pour as much rum as you want to into the soup. And it's the first time in my life I think I ever got drunk off a soup, but it was good. I also discovered Dark and Stormies, which changed my life. All right, so that does it for rambling on about the cruise. But we will talk about some of the paranormal aspects on that coming up on a future episode. I know that Porter said that based on the information that he got, that we got on the investigations, he was trying to piece some of that together because we got very, very, very specific information. So he's trying to find out if we can piece that together with actual records and put something together, because we got the name of a captain, the name of a ship, the year that it happened, all that stuff. So it should be easily verifiable if indeed we were getting the truth. So we'll keep you up to date on that as well. We will also, a little bit later on, we'll play the Week in Weird and we'll play our Gilbert Gottfried interview. But what do you think? Before we go to the interview and we run 12 minutes of us talking with Gilbert Gottfried, which, by the way, for those of you who are watching on YouTube, there is no video of the Gilbert Gottfried interview. I made a YouTube clip of it where I just took the photo of us with Gilbert because I was expecting to interview him after the show. I was expecting to have him perform, and then we would get him for 15 minutes or so after the program, after the set was over. And it just so happened that he wanted to do it first. So I was set up to record the audio, but I hadn't been able to set up the video yet. So unfortunately, I did not get to take video of it. But it was really just Taylor and myself sitting at a table with Gilbert Gottfried. There's some photos online of that, but generally it's the audio is where it really is. And I think Gilbert prefers it that way because they don't do any video aspect of his podcast. They'll do Facebook Live videos, but for the most part they haven't incorporated a video aspect. So I'm sure he'll be fine with us running the audio only. But before we do that, we should probably open our snacks, right?
Sure.
All right, so I'm going to get this box. I'm a little bit tied over here with the... So I don't want to hold it up because I don't want to put Spook Cat's address on the camera. But I also don't want to rip any of this stuff either because Like, it's pretty cool that it came all the way from Japan. So I'm going to try and peel that back a little bit without ripping it. It's amazing how much, like, hoops have to be jumped through to send stuff internationally.
Oh, yeah.
Especially when there's food involved.
That's actually quite regulated because of pests and insects and various other...
That's how you get hornets in Bermuda. You want hornets in Bermuda? That's how you get hornets in Bermuda.
Exactly.
I probably should have brought scissors.
Might be able to use a pen.
I don't have my pocket knife either. There's a pen over there if you want to throw that my way. Opening packages on the radio. That's what all the good paranormal shows do. Oh, I broke the pen. That's pretty good. I could probably rip it from there. If Godzilla jumps out of this thing and eats me, I'm going to be pretty upset.
There you go.
It's a lot of tape, Spook Cat. All right, we're almost there. I hope there aren't any painted rocks in here. That's another in joke. You won't get it, Moniz.
Okay.
I'll tell you later. All right. Got it open. Whoa. Well, first of all, there's a little card for us. We'll read that later.
Okay.
Because the audience just wants to know about the snacks. Oh, thank you, too. She also put the English translation on them for us so that we would know.
Excellent.
So we've got green tea. I don't know if you can see that on the... And they're famous for all the different Kit Kats that they have, and that's what she always posts up on LGAB for us. Peach Mint Kit Kat contains slight alcohol.
Ooh.
Oh, Japan, you do things right. There's a lot of stuff in here. Thank you, Spook Cat. Raspberry Kit Kat. Did you know that they had all these different Kit Kat flavors in Japan, Moniz?
No, I did not. Does that contain alcohol, too?
I don't think so. This is coffee chocolate. She says, I'm not responsible for anything that happens with these. If a fight breaks out over these, that's on you guys.
Okay.
So that's that. We have Sakura and roasted soybean Kit Kats. Cherry blossom and soybean powder actually make a good combination. So we have those ones as well. We're only like halfway through these too. We've got Pikachu. Not food. Do not eat. You can eat the tiny piece of guru though. Don't eat it gum. Go. Don't eat it off the floor. So there's a little Pikachu there. Put that over there. Oh, why? Can you? It's showing her address? Yeah. Okay, sorry. Everybody ignore that. I think she said she's moving anyway. I'm dropping stuff all over the place. So we have mini chocolate pie. Wow, that looks awesome. Look at those. There's like chocolate seeping out of it. Mini chocolate pie. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to just put the box on the floor and then nobody will see anything.
What is that box? A TARDIS?
Strawberry cheesecake Kit Kat. Green tea Kit Kat. This says an absolute must from Japan. We have Pocky. Green tea Pocky. Somebody who lived in Japan told me, you have to try Pocky. Oh, this is excellent. I wish Stephanie was here for this. Fried squid.
Ah.
I wish Stephanie was here for that. We'll save that till she comes in. And then this is Kumamon, the mascot for Kumamoto, Japan. Very troublesome. This consists of sweet red bean paste and sweet potato. So they're definitely They're inventive with some of their flavors.
Definitely. Thank you very much, Spooky Cat.
Thank you. And so basically, we just need to take a photo of us holding all of these because this is what Spooky South Coast is all about. It's all about candy and snacks. So I feel like, you know, I don't want to open any of this if Stephanie isn't here, but I'm dying to try some of it too. So we'll have to debate that and fight about that while we listen to the Gilbert Gottfried interview. Because I don't know. Some of these, I don't know if I can hold back.
Open one. How about that?
One of each? Hey, listen,
I was trying to do the parenting type thing. You pick one and you...
I'm not the one that chose to stay home tonight, Stephanie, although I also am the one that chose not to tell her that we were going to be opening this package on the air tonight as well.
Okay.
So, okay, well, if Matt's ready, we'll go to the Gilbert Gottfried interview. I'm just going to run the audio over here, and he'll put up just an image because, as I said, I'm the dummy that couldn't get the video stuff set up in time. But let's see, did I lose the video? I think I did. And we are here at Whites of Westport with the legendary Gilbert Gottfried. I'll take that down a bit. So let me just set this up a bit. Again, it's myself and Taylor Cormier at Whites of Westport. This was part of the South Coast Comedy Series that's been going on at Whites of Westport. And if you want to take part in any of the remaining shows, they do have tickets available. Coming up next Saturday night, it will be Nick DiPaolo. So if you're familiar with his comedy, you've probably seen him on Comedy Central, and he's been all over the place, Nick DiPaolo. He'll be next Saturday night. And then the Saturday after that, they're going to wrap things up with the very famous comedian Pablo Francisco. So if you've seen Pablo Francisco. He's the guy who makes all the noises, and he likes to talk like he does like the relationships where he does the girl's voice too. You know,
I think I know the one you mean.
I think one of them was the drunk Mexican girl at a party was one of his things. Like, you know, you're talking to me like you know me. Like that's him. I'm not going to attempt to do the voices, and he does like all the sound effects and all that stuff. So he'll be the week after that. So you can get those tickets at southcoastcomedy.com if you want to go and check out the shows. You can't ask for a better venue to see a comedy show. It's intimate. You're kind of close to the stage no matter where you are. And then the comedians are all there hanging out afterwards. So you can buy them a drink at the bar. They're selling some autographed pictures. Gilbert Gottfried stayed until every person that wanted to buy something bought something. In fact, I bought 2 autographs. One of them's hanging on my wall in my office. The other one is I'm keeping locked away because it's for his podcast, and I'm going to wait till I have the rest of the people from the podcast sign it. So I'm going to actually send it to the studio and have the rest of the crew sign it and then send it back. So we'll go right into this interview now. So it's myself and Taylor Cormier interviewing Gilbert Gottfried as we got the chance to pick his brain a little bit behind the scenes at Whites of Westport as part of the South Coast Comedy Series. I would have, and we are here at Whites of Westport with the legendary Gilbert Gottfried. I would have prepared a lengthy introduction, but I couldn't get Frank to put it together in time.
Yes, yeah. On my podcast, it's always like these. After I do the introduction, the audience is waiting for found dead in his Los Angeles apartment.
So the first question that we have for you is, what brings you to Westport, Massachusetts? And I'm hoping that maybe old Groucho can answer that question.
Oh, yes.
Well, what brought me to Massachusetts was back in my day, they had a thing called a train. And this was something that ran on tracks. And the tracks were on the ground. And the trains would be on the track.
So that's what's so great about not only about your podcast, but just kind of your comedy in general. You keep a lot of these characters alive.
Yeah, I like well, like it's so weird. I was watching a movie on TV just before I left to come here, and lo and behold, it was this actor John MacGyver.
Oh yeah,
yes.
I was just doing an impersonation of him earlier. You did it better.
Everything must be run according to schedule. Yes, we will have no
slack his ass on.
What is it about comedy stars and even actors of the days before? They don't seem to last as long today. They don't have that staying power.
And they used to be like those shows that like would keep the stars alive. Those shows like Love Boat and Fantasy Island. And these character actors, they did used to have long careers where, like, they were always welcome. You know, you saw them pop up in a movie and said, "Oh, you never knew their name."
That guy,
yeah. We've had a few on. We had on, Dick Miller.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He was fantastic.
He was on the Gilbert Gottfried's amazing Colossal podcast. He was on that. He came on and he said he worked a lot for Roger Corman, who was also a guest on the podcast. And he said Roger Corman, it was like he's known for being really just saving every penny that he can, not spending a dime on anything. And it was so low budget that Dick Miller played both a cowboy and an Indian, and he wound up really shooting himself, because you see him as a cowboy fire a gun, and then the next shot, him as an Indian fall down.
So by the time he got to Gremlins, he probably thought he was working on a big budget Hollywood picture compared to the Corman film.
Forget it, yeah.
So in your career, you've had the chance to cross paths with a lot of your heroes. Who's probably your favorite idol of yours that you got to work with?
Oh, there's been a few. There's been a bunch where I go, how did I get him on here? Like, Dick Van Dyke.
Oh, yeah.
Did it. Bruce Dern. I always a fan of Bruce Dern. And just a bunch of people.
And you get to explore the subjects that you loved growing up as a kid. You get to talk Marx Brothers. You get to talk Universal Monsters, some of the old cult films of the 50s and 60s. And that's, I think, the younger generation that's into podcasts, they might not find these things if not for your show.
It's fun, because when I first started doing the podcast, I thought, I'm doing old stuff. They're not going to know who these people are, and they're not going to know what we're talking about. And then I get these things like, tweets and whatnot saying, I didn't know who that was, but I've been looking it up. And so it's like a fun homework assignment for them.
Yeah, there's never an episode I don't want to listen to. It's even if I don't know the person, I read the little biography that you guys post, and all right, they worked with a lot of people I like. I'll give it a shot, and I usually end up following up with watching some of the stuff that they were in or listening to their music. It's terrific.
Yeah.
And the stories that you keep alive, whether they're true or not, are I was on a cruise this past week, and the entire week I was just walking around like Paul Lynde saying, I think, for everything.
Yeah.
I mean, but
did your dressing green room smell all right? No.
Yeah.
So, but that's, again, like this younger generation, like Taylor's saying, they go back, they rediscover these folks from the podcast, and they also help to rediscover films that they've never heard of. Of course, you talk all the time about your favorite film being The Swimmer, right?
Oh, that's one of them.
But what's your favorite horror movie of all time?
Oh, God. It was funny. I had... It was when I did, Turner Classic Movies with Bob Osborne. And you have to pick out favorite movies. And that was really tough, because I go, I like this one, but then I like that one more. Mm-hmm. But I wound up picking The Swimmer, The Conversation, Freaks, and... The Conversation, The Swimmer, Conversation, Freaks, and this is The Swimmer.
But even Freaks, like, that's a movie that could never get made today.
No, very strange film. And Oh, but as far as favorite horror films, I always loved, I grew up when they showed old movies on TV all the time. They filled up, I loved the old Universal. And then there was even it could also be fun with stuff like the old Monogram. Those were like the really cheap horror films.
You would just watch those for the effects. They're great. So fun to watch.
Oh, yeah. And
things look better in CGI. Things look more realistic, but it loses a lot of the charm, too.
Oh, definitely. And I think, because I always, when I was a kid, I figured out how they did stop animation. I thought, okay, they're moving it still by still. But still, I like it. And sometimes the computerization looks too... It's
too fluid. There's no impulse.
Because it's like with the old King Kong... doesn't have that much definition to it, and it's very sloppy animated, but you feel like you could reach out and touch King Kong.
A lot of people put work into it. There were people behind it. There was a whole team there was an imagination. It wasn't just somebody strand by strand putting hair on the thing.
And I think Roger Ebert said that he said that computerization looks realistic.
Looks realistic, but doesn't feel realistic.
Something like he said the old stop action looks phony but feels realistic.
Mm-hmm.
And with the computerization, it's very. I always loved when I would hear in certain movies how they achieved the special effects.
Oh yeah.
Like in that famous scene with Fred Astaire dancing around the room where they built a room that spun around.
Camera spun with it.
And that to me is like the thought that goes nowadays. They go, how do they achieve that? And you'll see a guy going, well, we press this button, now we added this later on.
They were inventing things back then to come up with what they had to do. It's imagination.
So you recently had John Aston on the podcast.
Yes.
The Great White Whale for your show, for your podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Is there anybody left that you still want to bring on that's been kind of evading you?
It's so weird because so many of them are ones that have already died that I would have loved to.
Well, listen, on my show, we can talk to the dead. We communicate with ghosts. So if there's anybody who's passed on that you want to interview, just let me know.
We can talk to Groucho again.
Yes.
I try every time
the money.
Every time I pull out the Ouija board, I try and talk to Groucho. It doesn't work. But we're huge fans, as I said. Thank you so much for sitting down and taking the time with us, and
thank you.
And looking forward to the show here.
And so it's Gilbert Gottfried's Amazing Colossal podcast. My Twitter is Real Gilbert. My website, gilbertgottfried.com. And I'm also doing this thing on Cameo.com where you could get me to do a personal shout out.
And as Frank would say, what's the name of the doc, Gilbert?
The name of the doc? Gilbert.
On Hulu.
Yes.
All right, so Taylor is a singer. He specializes in Frank Sinatra songs. I don't want to put you on the spot, but do you want to take us out with any kind of a duet?
Anything that you know that you want to do?
How about some Hello, I Must Be Going, maybe?
Yes.
Lead us off, Gil.
Yes.
Hello, I must be going. I cannot stay, I came to say, must be going. I'm glad I came, but just the same, I must be going.
Beautiful.
Should I come in as Margaret? Should I come in as Margaret Dumont with her? M-I-C-Q must. No, we don't want to subject the audience to that. All right, thank you again so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing the show.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gilbert. Thank you.
All right, that was Gilbert Gottfried with myself and news director Taylor Cormier, and it was just a great experience getting the chance to meet him, getting the chance to interview him. Some comments in the chat room, Spook Cat said she's not used to hearing Gilbert's inside voice, and that's true. Like when he's not on stage, when he's not performing, he's a much different personality, and even there, I don't want to like tell stories out of school here, but Gilbert was very quiet and shy and reserved.
Really?
Yeah, like in the back, in the green room, he was very much like, he's only 64, but he seemed like an old man, like they helped him up onto the stage, and he just was like, he's very slight of stature, and I don't know, he just seemed different. But then once the interview started, it's like a light bulb went off. Same with the show, like it was. I think what that is I think he just reserves all that energy so that he can perform when he needs to perform. But if you've never listened to Gilbert Gottfried's amazing Colossal podcast, and I tell people all the time, listen to that show, and they always say, well, I can't stand his voice. I can't listen to that show because I can't listen to his voice. Well, that's how he talks throughout the course of the podcast in his regular voice. Like he'll get boisterous when he laughs or whatever, but he's not doing the Gilbert Gottfried voice. Mm-hmm. You're not going to listen to 2 hours of Iago from Aladdin talking. And so when you listen to the show, you hear the passion that he has for old Hollywood and some of these character actors. Like we were laughing because he was doing the impression of John MacGyver. And people remember John MacGyver from the Twilight Zone. I could try to describe him to you if I wanted to, and you're not going to know what I'm talking about. But then I show you a picture. Oh, that guy.
Yeah.
And so that whole show is dedicated to all the that guys of Hollywood. The people who have worked with everybody. For example, this current week's guest is John Davidson. And I know John Davidson from That's Incredible and from Hollywood Squares. But I didn't realize that John Davidson had this whole career as a singer. I mean, I knew he put out albums, but I didn't know that he had toured as a singer, and that he even tried his hand at being a comedian, and that he'd been an actor in a variety of different things. I didn't realize that he played a transvestite on the streets of San Francisco. Okay. So there's certainly a lot to be learned about some of these actors and some of these stories that they tell, and they're keeping things alive. And I have to thank my friend John Tenney for introducing me to this podcast, because I would not be listening to it if not for him. We were on the second Strange Escapes cruise, and he told me, he's like, if there's anybody that would enjoy this podcast, it's you. And so as soon as I got back onto the mainland, I started downloading episodes of it, and I fell in love with it right away. And I went and I told Taylor, and I said, Taylor, if there's anybody else that would love this podcast, it's you. And so Taylor started listening to it, and he fell in love with it too. And now there's a listener society on Facebook for the podcast that we're all part of, and they share great old Hollywood stuff. It's fantastic. So if Gilbert Gottfried's voice is what would keep you from listening to that, have no worries. But it is really funny when they bring people on who are singers, because they always make Gil sing with them. And so it's really funny that one of my favorite episodes was Tommy James from Tommy James and the Shondells, telling the story about how he worked for Roulette Records, which was owned by the Mafia. And so he's got some really interesting stories about it. He was just a funny, funny guy. And then they decide to have him sing I Think We're Alone Now with Gilbert.
Oh, God.
And Gilbert singing is such a hilarious thing that they started doing these mini episodes on Stitcher where it's just people sending in requests of songs they want to hear Gilbert Gottfried sing. And it's so good. It's because he can't keep the beat. Like, no matter what, he cannot do it. And he basically, he makes every song his own. So, again, I know it sounds like I'm gushing, and I don't really gush about a lot of other shows or podcasts, so you know that if I am, it's going to be well worth your time to check it out and listen. So, if you've never listened to a podcast, you don't know how to do it, I mean, some of you out there, I don't know how you're listening to us if you don't know how to listen to a podcast, but if you've never done it before and you don't know how, just download the Stitcher app. And on the Stitcher app, you can search for Gilbert Gottfried's Amazing Colossal Podcast, and you'll get all the episodes as soon as they're released, the new episodes. Now, if you want the mini episodes, you got to pay for those. There's a subscription. Usually it's $5 a month to subscribe to Stitcher, but right now they're running a sale with the promo code SUMMER. And if you use that promo code, then you pay it's like $24 to get a year of Stitcher. So well worth it. There's lots of podcasts on there. Why am I promoting Stitcher so much? Why am I giving them a plug like this? Well, because they also carry Spooky South Coast. So if you need a way to get the Spooky South Coast podcast, you want to listen to some of the older episodes that you've never heard before, you can get them all right there on Stitcher. It's a great, easy way to listen to these podcasts. And what I love the most about it, probably my favorite thing about Stitcher, is it's one of the few audio apps on my phone that when I'm done listening to it, I can just swipe it and it turns off. You know, there's only 2 audio apps that I have that do that. The Stitcher app and the WBSM app. Everything else, you have to like try and go and turn it off, and then you have to sign out and do all this stuff. You just swipe it when you're done, and you're done. So hopefully people will check us out on there as well. What are we on? 575? This is episode 575?
Yep.
So that means there's 574 other episodes for you to check out of this show, and Stitcher's a great way to get a hold of a lot of those. Maybe, too, on some of those, you'll hear some of some of our older stories about the paranormal, some of our older experiences with the paranormal, some of our older thoughts and theories on the paranormal. I was listening to an older, because, from the Dark Matter Network, we run Tuesdays, which is working out really cool right now because I've been hosting on Tuesday nights. And then they run Spooky South Coast right afterwards. So it's like 5 hours of Tim in the middle of the night for people. That's power right there. But I was going through some older episodes trying to find a good one to send to Dark Matter for last week because we hadn't been on. And as I'm going through some of the older episodes, like I'm listening, I'm like, I thought that? I used to say that on the radio? What was I thinking? And it's really amazing how much we've changed in our perspectives of things, not just in the general beliefs that we have, but in the, just some of the way that we went about our business. There was once we were once on that Para-Unity train, and I jumped off that train a long time ago when I realized what it was really about.
Before it derailed?
It's still chugging along, but the problem is I think people are starting to realize like it's not feasible. It's not something that can happen. So yeah, maybe the idea behind some of these shows is to have more discourse and debate. Maybe it's not just about getting people that agree with you and pushing one kind of an agenda, which, if we can change our minds, maybe other people can too. So we'll certainly keep this train rolling and keep those episodes coming. But I guess what's the next big milestone? If we've got 575 episodes in the can, I guess we got to start planning what we're going to do for episode 666, right?
Yeah.
Because that's going to have to be something freaky.
Get a hold of the Church of Satan or something?
No, they're not really scary enough, though. They're not. They're just a bunch of people that want to do what they want to do and not have any repercussions from it. But, there'll be somebody. We'll come up with somebody for 666. But we've got a long ways to go. That's a couple years away.
Do another Angels and Demons show.
That's something that people have been asking us for anyway. They said that was a fascinating discussion, and I agree. The only problem is I don't know what Renee is up to anymore, and I don't know another angelologist. So if anybody out there knows somebody that has really studied the angels and knows the different, and I'm not talking about somebody who looks at it from a new wave perspective. I'm not looking for somebody that's like, I call in all the angels of light to come and protect us. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about somebody who knows
biblical scholar,
an actual theologist that knows, or somebody that at least is. They don't have to be, completely educated and trained in it, but at least have a passing knowledge of it, where we can talk about the individual angels, and that's what Renee was great for that. Whereas few other people could be.
I might be able to help you. He's written books on the Nephilim, and he actually studied in a seminary school. Let me reach out.
Okay. So, but that's the thing. That's the reason why we've had a hang up on that is I can't find any good angelologists anymore. Even when I look them up and I look up angelologists, what I'm finding is people who are, workers in the light.
Yeah.
And so that's fine and that's great, but that's just not what we're looking for that show. We want to talk about the specifics. And I've never really gone back and listened to that show again either. Maybe I'll put that on my phone through the Stitcher app and listen to that later on this week. I don't like to listen to those old shows though because I think I was terrible back then. Remember how I always sounded like I was running out of breath at the beginning of every show?
Well, you're also standing.
Right, but still I'd be like, welcome to Spooky South Coast. I'm like, I wasn't really nervous, but I guess maybe I was. Now I don't care. And I'm like...
Apathetic.
If the show goes to hell, I'm just going to sit here and eat Kit Kats for the rest of the night. So it's all good to me. The phone line's been ringing throughout the night, and I think I know who it is. So we're going to take the call, but we're going to try to make sure that we keep it. See, here's the thing. Like, I should have taken it when we were just on YouTube, but now that we're on the radio, I'm a little worried to take the call. But there's another call coming in.
Roll with it.
I almost wonder if I should just take the other call first. All right, let's just do it. Good evening. You're on Spooky South Coast. How are you?
Hello, long-time listener, first-time caller.
Long-time Playboy.
My name is Optimus. How are you?
Doing pretty well, LeBone. How are you?
How do you know it's me? Curses.
Because you've been on hold since the beginning of the show.
I know I've been holding up. One said I go blind. I'm doing all that holding. But okay. John Davidson took over the Mike Douglas show. You know,
yes, and he talked about that on the podcast. He talked about how Mike Douglas never really forgave him for it, even though it wasn't John Davidson's doing.
Do you know how he lost his job? How he got fired?
I believe was it over the phone?
No, he got fired because he had Jane Kennedy. You know Jane Kennedy. You know, beautiful Jane Kennedy, the black actress in the '80s. Well, he had her on the show, and he says, "What are you? You're so beautiful. What are you? You can't just be black." "Yes, I'm just black." But you got to be just something else. If you know I'm black, I can't believe it. You're too beautiful to be black. And I was like, how rude. I was throwing a rock at him, this big old head.
Yeah, that
like,
is.
Yeah, that is, because, back then, that was, he lost his job. He had like maybe another 2 months in the state council, so because of that.
I mean, John Davidson portrayed it as being, more of a cost-cutting measure, but maybe that's the real story, and John Davidson was just being diplomatic.
That's the real story. If I would have been there, I'd have put him on blast. Hey, John Davidson, JD. Like I said, now you talk about angels. What if I could get Mike Trout to come on the phone? Come talk to you guys.
Different kind of angel. Different kind of angel.
Okay, Wally Joyner.
He's talking about the California Angels. Do we all have to stand there and do the Angels in the Outfield thing there?
Oh, that would be fine with me, for sure. You remember that movie, Angels in the Outfield, and they did it with, what's his face, Gary Coleman?
No, that was a different movie with Gary Coleman.
Was something around like 81. It was Angels in the Outfield, wasn't it?
No, what was he in, The Littlest Angel or something like that? Or there was some angel movie that he was in, but yeah, the angel wore tennis shoes. Was that it?
I don't know.
No, that was the computer wore tennis shoes.
Computer.
Yeah, I don't know. The Heavenly Kid, that was it. The Heavenly Kid, Gary Coleman.
That was a remake of that. That's what it's supposed to be, Angels in the Outfield. There's angels out there. That's how that kind of worked out. Too.
Oh, that's completely different. The angel, well, whatever.
Yeah, so that was cool. So, last week was EDC here in Vegas, okay? So I went up to Utah Friday, okay? And when I was up in Utah, I went to this, I went like out, near Vernell is, up there near, like maybe 15 minutes away from the Skinwalker Ranch.
Okay.
So we were out there, looking at the picture of a sign. It's a Bigfoot crossing, stay on the trail. And I didn't notice until after I got back Sunday. You could look and see above the sign, you can see something staring at us. And it looks like Bigfoot staring right at us. It's like you see him in the woods, and it's like a branch like kind of in front of his face. And it's like, I guess he's probably a black person. You probably didn't see humanism up in Utah. Let's just see them on TV, look, wanted or something. Yeah. We're playing for BYU. So like I said, I was kind of excited, but I thought I was kind of like Moises. So it's like, I like Bigfoot. I think I even dated one of the seasons. Like I said, and I told you before that there was two brothers, Brian and Bill Fouquet. They're related. They're actually, Brian played for I think Seattle, and Bill played from San Diego, the Chargers. They're football players, offensive linemen, big hairy guys. Supposedly they're supposed to be related to Bigfoot. Their grandmother, quite hairy. And I'm not saying like needs from that nair, that out kind of whatever it is, get it off the leg. She's all over, very hairy. And so she's a big girl. Like I said, I mean, but I like big girls. It's way for simple. You know?
Listen, I love you, Lamone. I'm going to have to let you go because first of all, your phone's crackling more than our Kit Kat wrappers is. And,
really? So that's the same thing about the connection. We said about the connection should be called the All-American Reject. Shit, they give me hell. You know, so I was like, All right. Are you going to be on next week?
We will be. We will be. We'll be back next week. You can give us a call then.
Okay, so what did you play Spooky Weird yet?
No, but that's coming up. Coming up very soon.
I can't see this, so you're not on the YouTube. I feel like you know, enraged. I feel like OJ's nephew. So, you know, like Sasquatch Needs, okay, OJ's nephew.
This is devolving even more. All right, thank you, Lamone. Have a good night.
Play on, Playboy. I hope all you listeners have a wonderful new Memorial Day, and hope you guys be able to find somebody you love and let them remember, give them memories. Let people have good memories of whoever you love, whoever you like.
All right, there you go.
I'm going to go visit the Colonel Sanders.
All right.
Like I said, for symbol. Yeah,
thank you.
Or Julie B.
Okay.
Play on, player.
You as well. Okay, I gotta hit the button now. Okay. We do have another call on the line. We'll take that call. Good evening. You're next on Spooky South Coast. Whoa.
Hello.
Hi, you're on the air.
Hey, Tim. It's my name's Craig. We've met before at Walden Books. Not Walden. You did your last book signing.
Oh, Barnes & Noble, yep.
Barnes & Noble, we were talking about Gooseberry Island and stuff one time. But recently we were just up in Florida 3 weeks ago down in St. Augustine. And I got a story with that with my daughter. And
we're getting a little bit of a buzz from your phone. Are you standing near, are you near some kind of electrical device or something? Or
No.
Cordless phone?
Nope.
Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. And we're eating at, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. I know you've been down there. Mojo's. You ever been down?
No.
Restaurant?
No, I haven't been there.
All right. Across the street is the Tomato Cemetery. It's part of their ghost tours at night. And while we were eating there, my mother-in-law wanted to go have a cigarette, and my daughter's like, oh, I want to go out there with you. So they went out, and they were at the gate. It's all locked up during the day. And they were talking to... She was out there smoking a cigarette. My daughter was just looking around, and all of a sudden, she's like waving. My mother-in-law was like, what are you waving at? She's like, oh, there's a bunch of little girls. She's like, there's nobody in the cemetery. So she came back into where we were eating, and she was all freaked out, my mother-in-law. So my daughter's like, I want to go back outside. Like, my wife's like, all right, the food's not here yet. I'll go back out with her. So they go back to the gate, and they're sitting there, and all of a sudden she goes, there's a boy in the tree. And I was like, there's nobody in the tree, baby. She goes, yeah, there's a boy in the tree, and he likes apples. We're like, all right. I'm like, so she comes in, she tells us what happened. I'm like, hey, kids are perceptive to this with being young. She's only 4 years old.
Yeah.
I was like, maybe maybe she sees something, whatever. I was like, as long as it doesn't come home, I don't care. I'm like, as long as I'm not seeing stuff at home, that's fine. So, long story short, we get back to our uncle's house in Palm Coast. A cousin of hers is there, and we were talking about how we were over there. And he says, oh, on the night tours, they say that there's, we didn't even tell him the story. And he's like, yeah, they say, they see a boy in the tree at that cemetery across the street. And I was like, what? What'd you just say? And he's like, yeah, see. And we're like, funny you say that. Page today saw a boy in the tree. And he goes, yeah, they also see girls at the gates. And he's like, she was waving to somebody at the gates. I was like, that's the craziest thing. I was like, I couldn't believe it.
Well, and now the question comes, though, do you encourage her to keep that up, or are you going to try to put that block in that some parents put in?
So no. When so after we heard more of it, so we were like, I was trying to see if I got any other information out of her. I was like, so I talked to her. I'm like, Paige, I was like, what else did you see while you were there? She's like, just a little boy. And I was like, what was he dressed up as? And she didn't explain it. She was just like, how kids are, so I can't not understand, but like, it's tough to get their perceptive of it.
Mm-hmm.
But she's like, he likes apples. And like, did you get a name of anybody? And she keeps saying Marga. But I don't know. I can't find any records of anything so far of anything. We weren't able to walk around, like look at gravestones to see if there was any children.
Right.
And maybe a name, because whatever. But she's like, the girls were pretty. That's it. That's all we got.
Well, still, I mean,
back then, they dressed up in dresses all the time, too. Back then, they're little like that. So,
Yeah, it's
But we
worth.
did. We were trying to encourage her and just like, it's okay what you saw. If you saw something, you saw something. Well, like, there's nothing bad, So.
Well, if you go
But,
back,
yeah,
keep us up to date with if you go back and if you pick up on anything, if she picks up on anything else.
Yeah, I mean, we've been there before, but she was too little. It was
Right.
only 9 months the last time we were there. So we'll be back because our uncle only lives like half hour, 45 minutes away from there. So we go every time when we go down. So this time we want to go down. We want to do one of the ghost tours at night to see. When I came back home, I started researching. That was one of the things they say, that the boy in the tree and stuff. And I was like, wow, that was just freaky, But have you done anything with Gooseberry Island? I know you were talking about trying to do some more research.
Yeah, we were hoping to kind of get out there with some locals that we know that were going to take us out there, but haven't been able to follow up on that yet. But now that the better weather's here, hopefully we can make that happen.
Yeah, especially down there. The bugs right now, once it starts getting warm, the bugs are tough walking to that trail.
Yeah, well, that's the problem is, then by the time you get out of bug season, then it starts to get too cold or too wet to be able to go out there too. So
yeah,
you got to just pick your fight when you're going to go and do it. So, but I think we'll look into that, and I'll let you know if we'll update everybody if we do get out there.
Yeah, definitely, because I have interest started with that, but that's another. I can always talk to you guys another time with that one.
Sure.
But I'll keep you updated if we ever go back anytime soon and you get any updates with her. So.
Sounds good. Well, thank you so much for the call. Take it easy.
You're welcome. Bye.
Yeah, there's that's one of the things that we've been discussing internally here in the station. Is some people have told me, oh, you have to go out to Gooseberry Island and out to some of the structures out there, and so. But us, we have to do everything above board and with permission and all that kind of stuff. So we'll make it happen, I think, and we'll go check it out. We'll let you know about it. Craig was mentioning it's kind of sad when it's kid ghosts and when there's kids involved, and when you go through the cemetery, it hurts you to see the graves of children. And when we were in Bermuda, we went through the Royal Naval Cemetery, and there's a whole part of the cemetery where it's people who died from yellow fever during the yellow fever outbreak they had, and there's a lot of children that died. And in Bermuda, I don't know if it's a Bermudan custom or if it was just for this particular naval cemetery, but they put the exact cause of death on the gravestone. So as you're walking through, it's like one guy got blown off the bridge during a storm. Another would be, fell overboard and drowned. Like they have very graphic descriptions about how they died. And a lot of the children ones, they're especially sad because it'll say like "Sweet William gone to the angels" and things like that, and it's heart wrenching as you walk through there, and especially when that so many of them, maybe they wouldn't have died if they hadn't been in Bermuda. These are people who lived in England and came over for whatever reason, and you say, wow, if that had only happened to you when you were back in the UK, you might not have had the same tragic end as a result of it. So it's a little tough. If anybody else wants to call in, 508-996-0500, 877-996-1420. Those are the numbers to call in and share. I also, we've talked a lot on this show about my aunt and uncle's house in Halifax that they lived in that was haunted. That kind of got me into a lot of this stuff. But I've also mentioned my grandmother's house. My grandmother's house in Randolph that was haunted and burned down, and they've essentially built a new house on the spot. What's funny is, Matt, did you ever get to go to my grandmother's house, like for the 3rd of July parade or anything? Or okay, so you don't even have any memories of it. But so I'm at the library in Randolph the other night giving a lecture, and I started talking about that, and a woman in the crowd said, I work at the library. And I've actually had people that have told me that they live on a house on North Main Street that is haunted. And she's like, the way they describe it, it's right around the same area as the house that you're talking about. So it's got me wondering if maybe the house that they rebuilt over where my grandparents' house burned down, if they still don't have some activity going on there. So I'm just going to mention that so that if maybe the people who listen to the people who live there listen to the show, or maybe somebody who knows them listens to the show, get the word out to them. The woman who works at the library said I gave her my information to pass on, and I said just have them reach out to me if that's the case, because I don't know if I could go in there. if they asked me to go in and do an investigation, I don't know if I could go in there because it's not the same house.
Okay.
And I don't know how I don't know how I'd be able to handle that. You know, if I walked in and I was like, well, this looks like a completely different house, so it's fine. Or would I walk in there and be like, this isn't right and this doesn't feel right? You know, so it'll be interesting to see. I'd like to have that. It's a good problem to have. I'd like to have to make that choice. So hopefully we can reach out to them. Imagine that. Imagine if we basically were just able to investigate all the places that as we were kids freaked us out. I know, you know, we've talked about a place that you lived in when you were younger that's still standing, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, maybe there's that possibility that someday we get in there too. But that's when it gets personal, and when it gets personal, it's harder to divest yourself emotionally from it.
Well, one of the harder ones, I think, would be investigating where you knew the person.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Going to a haunted location, or, you know, most of the time you don't know who it could have been.
Right.
You know. We have a mutual friend. His place is active, Uncle Roger.
Mm-hmm.
And he's asked us, asked me, can we do something at some point? It's like, I would like to, but the hard part is I know all of it. I know.
Right. And and there's no doubt that that's who it is.
Yeah.
I mean, in the experiences that he's had, and he knows, he says straight out, I know who it is. And so that makes it a lot harder, especially, it's one thing like, okay, I go back to my aunt and uncle's house. That's fine. Everybody made it out of that. Everybody's fine. Everybody's fine. It was just, they happen to live there and deal with these hauntings. But as you're saying, when there's a loss connected to it, especially if it's a tragic loss, like, you've got to worry if it's not your own emotional baggage that is affecting you on that investigation. So again, as I said, it would be an interesting problem to have, but it would take some thinking and some pondering. We have another call on the line. If you would like to call in, 508-996-0500. Then after this call, we'll go to the Week in Weird with Matt Bleistein, who has a very, very interesting presentation for us this week. I literally fell off my chair laughing. Good evening. You're next on Spooky South Coast.
Hello. It's me again, fella. All right.
Lamone, we have a one call per show rule here at the station.
That's the first time I've ever heard that. I've been calling 4 and 5 times.
Well, okay, no, you call 4 and 5 times, but I only answer once.
But all right, I just want to tell you guys about last, previous Thursday night, and it's like really touched me. Just like think about it. When Robin Williams committed suicide that Friday, he would go that Monday and go into talks about reprising the live action movie.
We're losing you a little bit, Lamone. We're losing you a little bit.
Is this better? Is that better?
Sounds a little better. Yep.
All right. So like I said, he was supposed to go in that Monday to go and talk about reprising his role as the genie in the live action film that just came out this Friday. And it's like the movie. It's like they took him 5 years to make it after he killed himself, and it was like sad. I think parts like, well, that's what Robin Williams. And it's like, that would have been good. But then Will Smith did a good job. It was pretty good. I was surprised on how entertaining it was. And it's like, it's not, I'm waiting to see the Little Mermaid, live remake like that. And it's like, but I think that if anybody's like these old ones, would probably enjoy this. You got children, you don't have to be a child. I'm a little older than a child. But then, like I said, I enjoy it. So there's nothing wrong with going to see that. Mm-hmm. Get yourselves ready for next week. Godzilla, the King of Monsters. Yeah. That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah. No.
We're doing that same night. We're also doing a review of Rocket Man, the new Elton John movie.
Yep.
So I don't know. I need to pretend I'm going to Elton John. Yeah. I'm going to go. I'm just getting ready next year. It's going to be Godzilla versus King Kong. And so I'm hoping like maybe if I feel like Godzilla on Monster Isle this one, how that Rodan and Mothra, but it's like, maybe his son Minya, Katsuki, the little baby. Papa, that is such a cute baby. Godzilla's baby is adorable.
Well, you let us. I got another call coming in. You let us know how that is, okay?
Okay. Can I hear? I can't hear the show. Is it like on? I can get you on TuneIn Radio.
Download the WBSM app, and you should be able to hear us on there right there. WBSM. Download that app, and you'll hear us.
Go off in about 20 minutes.
About 20 minutes, yeah. But that's always a great way to listen to us if we're on the radio. It doesn't work if we're YouTube only, but all right.
Okay, all right. You kids take care. And so, like I said, what are you planning for Memorial Day?
I think I'm just getting together with my family and having a little food and keeping it low key.
That's good. That's a good way to do it. Save all your mischievousness when you come to Vegas.
Absolutely.
We're doing the StarCast, with the wrestling and
it's going on this weekend. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I would like to have gone and bring some friends on me, but nobody want to ride with the colored guy in a mask. Wrestling matches.
Our friend Tim Dennis from my fellow fill-in host on Midnight in the Desert, Tim Dennis, he's out there this weekend. So if you run into him, say hi.
I tell you right now, if I'm running into him, I'm like, "Oops, excuse me, I wasn't driving, Cabo Espanol." Like I said, I was like, there's only one Tim that I like to see. That's the boy on the phone for Chisel. Like the three brothers. Like I just want to say hello to everyone. And Ciao Bella and Matt is so quiet over there. Listen to the background. It's like he's not even there. It's like he's like the Jackie Martling of the show.
All right. Thanks, Lamone. Have a good night. All right. We got to move on. All right. You're next on Spooky South Coast.
Yes. Hi. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Thank you. Hey, I listened to you from New Hampshire, right?
Well, thank you.
And I was wondering, I listen to you all the time when you're on, but have you ever done anything? I've never heard anything about black-eyed children.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had David Weatherly on to talk about it, but it's probably worth revisiting and having an update. That was an episode where we got really freaky for us because we had some local people that called in that were saying that they saw black-eyed children around New Bedford and around this area during that show.
I did hear that show. Okay, I'm sorry. I had forgotten.
It's been a few years, though.
I just bought Weatherly's book. I just bought the book I hadn't started reading it yet.
Well, it's a great book, and it's certainly worth revisiting as a topic. We should either bring him back or some of the other researchers who have kind of picked up some of the work that he's done and taken it to different directions.
Yeah, how about shadow people? Do you guys ever do any shows on the shadow people?
Yeah, we've done some on those and shared our own experiences with them too. But yeah, no, it's another show that would make a great complete show topic sometime going forward.
Yeah, because sometimes my Wi-Fi goes wacky and I don't get the show. You know what I mean?
Well, you can always listen to us later on. I'm sure you're a YouTube user. You use YouTube at all?
Well, I'm really not that. You know what I mean? I'm not that smart with this stuff, but I guess I could find out.
Well, yeah, shoot me an email, tim@SpookySouthCoast.com, and I'll help you find some ways to catch it if you miss it.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. I'll have to find out how to do that too.
All right, we'll help you out. Whatever it takes, we'll help you out.
It's terrible, isn't it, when you're not, you don't know how to work these things.
No, that's what I do all day here. I run the websites and the social media and all that stuff for the station. So I'm always helping people out with, being able to connect with it wherever they are.
Yeah, because I'm not on the radio now, am I?
You are. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Oh no, we don't screen calls here. It's Art Bell style, unscreened open lines.
Oh, okay. No. I wasn't going to say anything bad, anyways.
No, of course not.
I was just curious,
Well, no, say hi to the South Coast. You're on the radio.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm from there originally.
And did you retire to New Hampshire or?
Yes, I retired to New Hampshire, right, in '94, right.
That's something that I want to do at some point. I want to retire and move up there. That's why I'm growing out my beard so that I can be a Santa Claus on a Christmas train. All right. Well, thank you very much for the call.
Yeah, thank you, Tim, very much. I gotta pay more attention.
Well, we'll give the station a call during the week if you run into trouble, and we'll make sure that you can get the show.
Yeah, it was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very, very much.
Likewise. Take care.
You have a nice holiday.
You too.
Bye-bye.
508-996-0500 is the number. Why don't we take a break for a moment here to get a little weird? And as I mentioned, Matt Bleistein has outdone himself once again with the Week in Weird. I shouldn't shouldn't like not expect him to. When I watched this, I was kind of like, oh, I think that there's some copyright images in this, and some things that there might be a problem if we use it, and it turns out that wasn't the case at all. But
he's a professional. He knows
he is. But he really he fooled me with it. Like, it's so good, and that's what I like about these each week is that's you see some of these stories that go around. There's all some of these weird stories that are out there that people are talking about, but he goes kind of beyond that, and he takes it a different direction. And he finds a different angle to the story than what other people are talking about. And then to be able to kind of bring it in with the video production too at the same time, it makes it into a very entertaining package. So if anybody out there, if you want to just catch the Week in Weird on its own, if you want to share it with people, Matt Costa always puts it up on our YouTube channel as its own separate video. So you can just go right to YouTube. You can take that video and you can share it just like you would any other YouTube video. You can put it on your Twitter. You can put it on your Facebook. Wherever you share YouTube videos, you can share that and kind of spread the word of the Week in Weird a little bit. Because, listen, not everybody wants to listen to this podcast, to this radio show, to Spooky South Coast Experience. It's not for everybody. Some people say, I don't know if I want to listen to a 2-hour show that talks about the paranormal. Or sometimes talks about the paranormal and talks about snacks a whole bunch. Like, it's not everybody's cup of tea. Green tea Kit Kats, which I'm going to be eating during the Week in Weird. But, it's not everybody's cup of tea. So they might say, I kind of like the weird talk a little bit, but I don't want to listen to a whole 2-hour show. Well, then the Week in Weird is perfect because it gives them that little taste of strange little taste of weird for the week.
Yeah.
And we're gonna go to the Week in Weird right now. Save me, Matt Blystein.
In a world where the paranormal is just a breath away, we're spanning the globe to bring you the best in paranormal news. This is the Week in Weird. Hello, and welcome back to the Week in Weird. If you're looking to make a little extra money but don't want to drive for Uber, our first story might be the answer you're looking for. Officials in a small French coastal village, whose name I can't pronounce, are seeking the public's help in deciphering mysterious writing found on a stone, and they're offering $2,200 to anyone who can help solve the mystery. Visible only at low tide, the stone is covered on one side with crude letters, symbols, and a drawing of a boat. Two possible dates, 1786 and 1787, are also visible. Some believe that the stone might be related to nearby artillery batteries which were built around the same time. Experts think that the other writing on the stone may be in Basque or perhaps Breton, a language spoken by early inhabitants of the British Isles. Whatever information the original authors were trying to convey remains a mystery. The village hopes that by offering a reward, someone will finally solve the puzzle. A jury will choose among the entries to select the most plausible suggestion and award the prize money to the lucky entrant. Now, I'm no linguist, but to me, it looks like the writing could be early Rolling Stones lyrics. Following on the heels of Lorraine Warren's passing a few weeks ago, the paranormal community recently lost yet another legendary figure. Nuclear physicist and prominent UFO researcher Stanton Friedman died last week in Toronto at the age of 84. Perhaps best known for being the first civilian investigator to document the site of the infamous Roswell incident of 1947, he helped to popularize the theory that it was a genuine crash site of extraterrestrial spacecraft and that the U.S. military recovered 2 flying discs and a number of alien bodies. Though he never spotted alien life himself in more than 6 decades of research on the subject, other ufologists around the world held him in extreme high regard. Over the course of his illustrious career, he wrote numerous books, articles, and UFO-related papers, and gave more than 700 lectures at institutions around the world entitled Flying Saucers Are Real. He is survived by his wife Marilyn and his 2 daughters Melissa and Rachel. In other sad news, the world's most popular cat, whose face launched 1,000 memes, passed away this week at the age of 7 from complications of a urinary tract infection. Grumpy Cat, whose real name was Tartar Sauce, became an internet megastar in 2012 after her photo was posted on Reddit. She became such a cultural phenomenon that her likeness appeared on nearly 900 items from socks to tattoos. Her 2014 book, Grumpy Cat, a Grumpy Book, made the New York Times bestseller list and sold over 500,000 copies. At the time of her death, she was reported to be worth up to $100 million and had over 12 million followers on social media. Thankfully, for those of us who just can't get enough Grumpy Cat, Steve Huff, the preferred communications czar for recently deceased celebrities, has once again stepped in to help us out. Huff posted a video on his YouTube channel that appears to show that he made contact with Grumpy Cat from the other side. Here's a short clip. She went on to say, "Don't sweat the small stuff," and it's all small stuff. Godspeed, Grumpy Cat. Godspeed. And that's it for this week's installment of The Week in Weird. I'm your host, Matt Blystein, and I'll see you next week.
It's another hilarious edition of The Week in Weird, and so that was kind of my issue with it, was I thought that he literally lifted Steve Huff clips with that video because
he did a good job.
He nailed it.
Mm-hmm.
And then once I realized exactly what the quote-unquote wonder box was that he was using, once I saw that, I actually fell out of my chair. I laughed so hard. So, again, that's The Week in Weird with Matt Blystein. You can check it out each week on the Spooky South Coast YouTube channel. So even if you missed out on it in the show and you just want to catch The Week in Weird before you sit down to watch the entire Spooky South Coast, it's always up there separately for you to be able to share around. Well, we still have some time left in the show, and Moniz, we didn't really talk about it that much because, I feel like it's something that we'll address in a full episode at some point when we have a little bit more time to devote to it. And it's kind of a hard subject for a lot of people to talk about right now. But as Matt Blystein mentioned in The Week in Weird, we did lose this past week. We did lose prominent UFO researcher and just kind of all-around beacon of knowledge, Stanton Friedman, recently. And people had been asking me for a long time, like, when are you going to have Stan Friedman back on? And I kind of didn't want to say it to people, but he'd been sick for a while.
Yeah.
This was not something that kind of came up suddenly. He'd been battling some kind of an illness. I don't want to give more information away than that, but he had been sick.
Yeah, for the last 5 years, really bad for the last 2.
And so that's why we had him on with Kathy Martin probably about 5 years ago, and even then he didn't seem like himself. So that's why for the last couple of years obviously he still did some interviews and he still tried to kind of battle his way through it, but we, knowing what was going on, we just thought it was kind of better if we didn't try to force him to do a long form radio interview.
He loved doing events. He loved going to these lectures and talking to the people. I've known Stan for going on 25, almost 30 years. And he was always very approachable by anybody. And anybody could just walk up and just talk to him. And he would answer them. He would give them the time.
And he was able to talk to people at their own level.
Correct.
So even though, you walk up to this guy and you say, what are you, a nuclear physicist or something? Well, because he was.
Yeah.
And he could talk to you at that level, but he could also find a way to, for lack of a better term, dumb it down for the people that weren't at that level.
Yeah. He was very articulate.
And people would say, well, gee, Stan Friedman's been kind of giving the same lecture for 40 years, but that's because, but he was, he did. He would always go out and that was kind of his bread and butter, is he would do the flying saucers are real approach. Yeah. But that's because the message still rang true with people. And he was probably able to talk UFOs with people that would never have listened to somebody talk about UFOs, based on his background, but also based on his
personality.
Yeah, his demeanor, his approach to people. That, you could put him in front of a UFO convention, but you could also put him on Larry King Live.
Yep.
And you could also put him in front of a National Science Foundation panel. So he was a guy that kind of was one of the best spokespeople for ufology. He was one of the best representations of it that we could have asked for. And I think we wouldn't be nearly as far along in it as we are today if it wasn't for Stanton Friedman occupying that position. So, because let's face it, the rest of you guys are all a bunch of nut jobs. So he made you all look good. No, there's a lot of great UFO researchers today, and I think the differences now is what we're seeing is coming out of the Stanton Friedman era. You're talking about a guy that would talk. Obviously, he focused a lot on the Roswell crash,
right?
And then when he worked on the book Captured with Kathy Martin, they focused a lot on Betty and Barney Hill. But he was a guy that could talk in broad strokes about UFOs and kind of talk about it as an overarching thing. But now we're getting to the point where, and it's not a knock, but we're getting to the point where we have specializations within ufology.
Yeah.
Where people are talking about just certain aspects of it. So you can have like a Mike Clellan focusing on the owl connection.
Yep.
Or you can have somebody else that's talking just about, like yourself, you talk frequently about people who were abducted and then kind of met again on Earth.
Or abducted together.
Like all these different, like more niche aspects of abduction. And you can get away with that because a guy like Stanton Friedman kind of laid the groundwork from that forest for the trees.
We are standing upon shoulders of giants.
And this is where we will go forward with it. We will have more people that are able to not only specialize in it, but talk about specific incidents, specific cases. And the more that we can do that, the more then it becomes, I don't want to say believable, but for the average person, it becomes more of it has more impact. It becomes more believable.
Right. I got you.
And so I think that we'll see a lot of people kind of pick up some of the mantle from Stan and try and do the same thing. But I think you'll also see people realize that, they need to take it also the next step. And he would definitely be proud of that. So for all of us out there that are interested in things that are up there in the sky, when you look up there and you're looking for something flying around, also just acknowledge Stanton Friedman while you're looking up there as well. The other question that I keep getting asked over the last couple of weeks is, what else do we have going on in the coming weeks and the coming months? Well, we haven't really booked anything yet. We're working on a few things, a few ideas that we have, trying to find ways to do some different stuff, but also kind of go to some favorite places and look at them from a different perspective. So we'll have some announcements in the coming weeks about that. But I want to say that coming up really quickly here in July will be the Ocean State Paracon. So that's coming up. Let me give you the exact dates. I think it's the 13th and the 14th. I don't want to speak out of school, but I think I said that phrase twice tonight too, speak out of school. Like, I'm the only person left in the world that uses that phrase, and I've used it twice in the same night. But I want to make sure that we get the exact dates. So the 2019 Ocean State Paracon, which is not loading up on my screen. It is happening July 13th and 14th at the Assembly Theater in Harrisville, Rhode Island. So anywhere that anybody that's been to the Ocean State Paracon before, it's at the same place. And we'll be there the 13th and the 14th. Great lineup of people. And what's great about this is it's a big, big fundraiser. It's all for charity. All the money goes to charity, so you're doing good when you're coming and hanging out with all of us weirdos talking about paranormal things. You're doing some good for the people of Rhode Island as well. So you can get your tickets for that by going to riseupparanormal.com and clicking on the Paracon tab, and you can get your tickets there while you still can because, listen, there's stuff that's going to sell out, like the Paranormal Investigation, sold out. Vendor tables, sold out. But you can still get your advanced general admission tickets. And, of course, they will sell tickets at the door as well. But it's better to get them in advance so you can make sure that when, because if things start to fill up, you can't get into that nice air-conditioned theater. You don't want that. You need that. That's where all the speakers are, but that's also where all the relief is if it's a nice hot summer day. So definitely check us out at that. And then, of course, the Mass Paracon is coming up at the end of September as well. And you can get tickets for that at massparacon.com. That's going to be a lot of fun. Get to, I think, as long as everything goes according to the way that Sam had it planned, get to investigate Ventford Hall again. I think it's to be myself and John Tenney and maybe Stephanie if she comes along as well. And hopefully no bats this time. But I'm sure there will be a bat. All right, we have about 3 minutes left. Let's see if we can take this call. Good evening. You're on Spooky South Coast.
Hello?
Hello. Hi, you're on the air.
Oh, hey, Tim. Oh, that's weird. I thought I was watching you guys live. How weird. Hi, it's Anna.
Hi, Anna. How are you doing?
I was on the cruise with you guys.
You were?
Yes. So I have to say, I did very much enjoy doing the UFO watch from the cruise ship. Are there ever going to be any plans to do that from the Bridgewater Triangle?
I don't see why not. I mean,
I was thinking about putting something.
Yeah, I don't see why we couldn't all get together some night, and as long as we have permission.
Yeah.
Maybe we could go to the ledge and do it there. Not as an event, but just kind of like as a get together, and see if we can kind of have the same thing happen out there. Because we did have some weird stuff happening when we were looking up at the sky.
There's a BFRO thing I'm doing in a couple of weeks, and that's one of the things I'm being brought in to do is help do a UFO skywalk.
And that's where's that going to be taking place? Where's that taking place? So
it's in Bridgewater.
Okay, so you'll let us know if you see anything, and then we'll book something follow up after that.
Yeah, that was really. I think that would be an awesome outing. I mean, just bring the bug spray, obviously, because we'll be out of doors. But
right. Or we can just let them land on us and then feed them all to Moniz.
Yeah.
They might get trapped in his beard in here.
That's true. That is true. Well, I'm glad that you had a good time, and it was great being able to spend all that time with you and getting to meet your sister too.
Yes, she was sad. She saw I was watching you guys on. I have the TV to myself, so I was able to put you up on the big TV. And she was like, "I have to go to work, so I can't sit here and watch it with you."
That's all right. She can always watch it later. All right. Well, thank you so much for calling in, and I will let you know if we can put something together like that.
That would be awesome. I would definitely be interested. Hopefully have the night off of work.
Well, we'll make sure we work on a night that you will have the night off.
Cool. Thanks, Tim.
All right. Take
Hi,
it easy.
Matt and Matt.
Bye.
Bye.
And that about does it for us for this week's show. We will be back next week with another action-packed episode. We'll be back pretty much every week. Even during the Ocean State Paracon, I usually come back here and do the show the night of. Although the last couple of years, I think I booked an event, but I think we'll still be able to have a show. Maybe we can take the show on the road. We have the broadcast equipment here, the remote equipment here now. So who knows what we can pull off. But we will be here next Saturday night. Hopefully you will be as well. Remember, if you want to get a hold of us at any point during the week, SpookySouthCoast.com is our website. You can email us, spookycrew@SpookySouthCoast.com. Follow us on Twitter @SpookySC. Follow us on Instagram. And, of course, you can find us all individually on social media as well. So until next time, for Matt, for Stephanie, for Kylie, I'm Tim. Stay spooktacular.